Okay, look, thanks very much for joining us again. First up, before I actually talk about what's coming up with both the online conference and the new article we've put up yesterday afternoon, I wanted to thank the people. We asked you last time and explained that we've been hammered, and I'm not going to go through the reasons why I mentioned names because that means we get more hammered than we are. And we've had a lot of issues trying to get back into anywhere. And I want to explain that last article where I made that ask people if they could share it. Well, instead of the normal 2 to 3 thousand, it's gone above 50,000. And if it wasn't for the people who shared that particular article, I know because we've checked that most of the people who got that article got it through recommendations. Having said that, that leads into the next of the article. Now we're going to do 4 of these articles about the rocks, 2 that are going to look at the mechanics, the technicality, the ridiculous technology, and the other 2 relate to the other side of the equation, the more mystical side. Now I keep these articles separate because they're different stories and some people don't believe in anything that they can't see. So therefore, I try and make sure that the argument about the rocks is done on 2 different levels. But let me explain. What I'm gonna do first, after I just sort of give you a setup for what we're going to talk about and how I'm going to do this, is I'm going to show you some of the rocks that we're going to talk about, and I'm also going to talk about the things these rocks have actually done. Now, the article that's going up, the first article we put up was about 4 of the 10 rocks I've chosen out of over 200 that I've looked as my top 10, which vary depending on what's going on. I did 4 of them, but I couldn't do any more. I just ran out of space. And the next 6, maybe 7, because there's one that's sort of sneaking in through the back door from someone else we're in contact with, they will come up soon. But in between each of these, I had a choice of 12 that I narrowed it down to, of 12 incidences where the rocks did something. As soon as I report it, we're going to get smashed. Now, the difference is when we talk about the technology and the features of the rocks, you can't argue about that. And the fact that they're original, we've got proof each time they are original. Can't be argued with because we've got all that evidence and we've got research that goes with it. When we talk about the other side of the equation, all you've got is our word that this has happened. And that's much more difficult. But to begin with, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do is the rocks we're going to talk about on our next online conference, I'm going to very quickly just go through quite a few of them and just hold them up so you get an idea, first of all, that in the case of these rocks, there's something amazing about them at a physical level. Then we'll go a bit deeper. So when I hold this one up, that's one side of it. It's a flattened sort of rectangle. There's a ridge over there, and on the other side, there's some more markings, which are actually an angled sort of language. Connecting lines on this side. The thumb rests on the ridge side there, and it sits in your palm. Now that's the first one. I've spoken about that quite a few times. These rocks are coated. They're called star rocks by Uncle Marbuck. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you 7 of these very quickly. More detail on the day. And the reason I'm doing this, it leads up to something. Here's the second one here. You'll note it's got what looks like the figure eight cut into it. When you look at the back side there, you've got dots, you've got different ridge lines there, you've got imprints at the top. And over here you'll find that's the area where your thumb or your hand fits inside. This is a woman's rock as opposed to the other one, which is a man's rock. And because of that, because it's a woman's rock, it's held in the left hand, which I'm trying to get across now, like that. Men's rock are held in the right hand. Now those 2 have got the same sort of a technique where there's markings placed on these rocks. Now the markings, ladies and gentlemen, need to be cut. Here's the third one, and this one we think is a meteor. And you'll see it's been cut all the way across, and there's a sheer face in there. Now all of this one again has got straight lines across here. Then it's got other panels. There's one over here. There's one over on this side here, and on, I think, and I'll see if I can find it, this one here, you'll find pieces of that brown have been cut off or smashed off, and then another color underneath comes out. Now that's a common story with these rocks, and here's a very good example of one we are going to talk about. It's in the top 10. You'll see this rock has been cut into a shape, and then you'll see there's marks. Now when you look inside there, you'll see those marks show us a completely different covered base underneath, and I'll show you another one like that again. This has been coated artificially and cut. On the top there, you've got a star map there, which is Corona Australis, which you can't be seen, but it's exactly replica of what that's like. This rock has been cut, and you'll notice on the side there, there's a ridging where the coat is run a second time because it's been heated up the top here for a thumbprint. And that's the only part of it. All of it is perfectly flat. The chert coat, the chert and resin coat's been placed on the top, and underneath is a sort of whitish brown rock, completely different from the rock on top. This is a common part of this story. Now here's another one very quickly. I'm only doing this very quickly today to give you an idea what's there. Here's a rock here where you can actually see the rock under, try and get my finger there. You can see the rock underneath. Completely different again, and notice how it shines. There's a coat that's been put on top. This one's got some of the underneath the base rock showing through, and on the back side here you've got the language placed on there, and it's been cut fine again. There's always one side that has a narrative, and you'll notice these are straight lines and curved lines again. The straight lines and curved lines are very much a part of the Star Rocks tradition. And speaking of straight lines, here's 100 of them at least. And it's been cut and recut and recut. And on this side there are 5 lines running across, 2 running down. We believe this is a Seven Sisters story. And each line on this, no matter which way it's gone, you've got the original ones, then the ones that have gone across when ceremony's taken place, is perfectly straight. Incredible lineage, simply because original people don't do geometric lines. But here, this is a common part of this story. Still maintaining this Star Rocks tradition, I want to show you this one. This one is a different type because it's actually got a triangle on this side, a triangle on that side, and that triangle is 5 mil by 5 mil by 5 mil shorter than the one on this side. And you'll notice the coat stayed on the top. It's been rubbed off. Now look at some of the markings on this. These are not actually cuts. These are ridges that have been placed on top of that chert coat that's on top of it and has come away. This has actually been melted on and placed on here. And here's a different set of, there's ridges again, and there's some you can see if you look very carefully down the bottom, vestiges of it. So each side, what's fascinating is each side has a different pattern formation. Now, is this a utilitarian rock used for grinding or for cutting? No, these are ceremonial rocks, and I've got to tell you something about these rocks. You won't find these markings, you won't find this geometry today, nor is making something that can melt this chert thing and then stick this thing back on top on this side here. This is not the province of any stick, stone, bone technology, and it did not come out of an open fireplace. Chacano told me this came from a time when we had more DNA than we have today, and from a time when technology was in this country. And these rocks, basically, some of these rocks, like I can show you this one here, which was found 1.5 meters beneath the surface in sandstone country. And it's only sandstone there, but this is not sandstone. This rock here, number 2, is found in country that's only basalt. This is not basalt. These rocks travel all over the place. And of course, that's one part of this story, and we certainly look at that. Now, those 7 rocks are from the Star Rocks collections, but there are others. And I'm going to show a few of them very quickly. Here's one. Now, have a look at the lines and the cuts on this. Have a look at the edge on this. There's a little bit here. We had a bit of a problem with that. This is a rock that is cut, and it's a really hard rock, and it's been cut and sawn, but it's original. Well, how did they do this? And it's got 7 different sides on it. And it's quite an unusual arrangement of patterns and geometry. And the most interesting part of this story is, ladies and gentlemen, that where this place came from. The elder threw the rock at me because we have never taken one rock off country. It's been bought or given to us. He said, take this one. And it wasn't the best. It was one of so many, literally thousands laying on the ground. And how do they make it? This is a really hard rock. This one is quite interesting. Let's take another one. This one here. A perfect core extraction. I remember showing this one to a geologist from Germany. And he said, I've seen many core extractions before, but nothing is so perfectly circular as this, because it was broken here. And then when you look on it, as you turn it around, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see all these perfectly straight lines again that have been cut with the finest blade. It wasn't stick, stone, or bone. This has been cut, and this has been drilled out. It's a sacred rock. It's called a silicon. Here's another one. This one is petrified wood. You can see that fine cut running across there again. That tells me again it's Star Rock's business, because notice it goes around all four sides. This is petrified wood, and it's been shaped into a silicon. You hold it with your thumb there. It's a right hand one, a male one. It's pointed like that. And on the back there you can see where it actually, you can see the markings, how this was once a tree. But how did they shape it into this shape? And how did they cut that line that runs around there? Again, the technology is amazing. Then we have other silicons, like these two. This one, which is a right-hand silicon, and this one, which is a left-hand silicon, which is actually fallen and broken. We've had to stick together. These have been shaped. On the bottom of this one here, you'll find 38 lines running across, and it's been cut again. You see those 3 lines here? They've cut all the way around in one continuous cut. And actually, when you hit this rock, this one in particular, you'll notice that's a rock. Well, how does a rock make a sound like that? It's been worked. It's been played around with. Again, we're looking at 2 groups of rocks we've got here. We've got the star rocks, and I'm showing you some of the other rocks. Here's another one, another sacred rock. This one. Now I'll turn it the right way around. This has been, well, there's a story about that one. We won't go into too much detail now. But what's interesting is on the back, you've got something that's been stuck onto this rock, and it's been there ever since. A line that runs around the other sides. And again, I'm going to talk about these in more detail on the day. These are the ant people, and yes, they do have that alien appearance that we're so familiar with. With nearly all of these rocks, ladies and gentlemen, we have them with us now, but we do not know where they came from, because most were given to us or sold. And when they were sold on the open market, what they'd give is the state, no more. So it's quite an interesting setup. Now I want to finish with this one over here. And for that I'm going to walk away a bit, because here it is. On one side you've got something carved like this, and on the other side, it weighs over 6.5 kilos. You have this arrangement. This has been cut into a slab of granite, just like that. The slab of granite's been cut away, and then they've cut this in here. And that pattern, which I think is the female side of the rock, is about the serpents. And it's an amazing pattern. And there's lacquer on this side here. You might see the remnants of what is some lacquer that covered the whole of this rock. It weighs 6.5 kilos. How did they cut it? How did they mark it? I've got to tell you something. You put a crystal on top of that and it goes berserk. So ladies and gentlemen, I've just shown you a snippet of 14 of some of these rocks. Now, in the comments that came back to us, quite a few people said they live in other countries and they'll never be able to come and see these rocks. In response to that, what we're going to do is we're going to set the rots up in formation, and when we finish our online conference, hopefully this one, if not this one, the next one, because we're doing rocks for both the next 2, we will leave the camera above the rocks for half an hour, and we'll make that part of the presentation, and you can have that as well. Now, I don't know if anything's going to come out of it. We'll put the camera above the rocks because the rocks' energy goes upwards into the camera. We have no idea what's going to take place with it. I haven't spoken to the rocks about this, except they know they've accepted it. but I don't know what they're going to do. But what I do want to tell you about now is what the rocks have told me to make clear to everybody. And I'm hoping the people who shared this the last time share it again because of this statement the rocks have given me. And I've been with them for 10 years. And what I'm going to say sounds pretty bizarre. But I've got to say, what we're doing is, as I've said many times, 2/3 of the rocks are already in South Australia somewhere, and buildings are taking place right now, and it's getting set up to be put into formation forever. It'll stay in formation. People can sit inside the rocks. I told you that before, and we've done this for the last 2 years because they asked for it to happen. Well, what they've told me now is because of the times, and I'm not going to say the issue about what's involved, because if I do, that means this goes off. People are stressed. They're under duress, and a lot of people who believe that they're just falling apart in so many regards, and people just don't know what to believe. We've told you the change is coming. We've mentioned it happened at Uluru, and we want you to stay and hang on to that belief. What these rocks will do will make you more steadfast. They will give you wisdom. They will give you strength, and they will make it clearer for you. What we're saying is this. They are saying as follows. When these rocks are placed in formation, if you sit inside one of them for 10 minutes, which is what we offer, and you'll be guarded, and if there's a problem, you're taken out straight away, one of two things will happen, one of three. Number one, you will be given something that'll be life-changing. Number two, that may not happen. You may be given nothing whatsoever because the rocks feel you're not ready. Or number three, you might feel discomfort. You might have a drop that runs out of your nose to say, get out straight away and we will move you out. If number two or number three happens, we refund immediately. My guarantee is this, for those people who need strength, who need spiritual strength, spiritual emboldenment, and spiritual belief and faith in what's taking place, there's a way out of this, the rocks will give you that. Remember, they were at Uluru on that day. They were set up in ceremony. Some of these rocks I took to the rock the day before we did this, and placed them on the rocks. I gave them 3 ceremonies then before they came back. So they are locked in. They want to become part of this. Pardon me. That place will become a portal forever. It'll be one of the strongest portals in this country. We are going to declare this place a sacred ground. It'll be declared as such. And people will be invited in there, and it will become a place of sanctuary, of enlightenment, of strengthening yourself when you sit between these circles. And if you do sit between the first one, you're accepted and you get something from it. You have to wait 2 hours before you go go into the second one, and then you have to wait 2 more days before you can repeat that process. That's their rules. My guarantee is this, for those who need it, it will be there. Now, we're, I think, about 2 months away from setting this up, but in the meantime, there's a problem. I'm telling you, these rocks are involved in changing the world. And the problem is this, well, where's the proof? And that's what the article I'm putting up is about. It's about, I mentioned 12 because 4 just missed out. And I did 4, I think 5 in the first article, which is put up now, and I'll do another 5, another 7 or 8 later on. But some people aren't going to read this article, so it's 5,000 words. So I'm going to need to give you an example of 2 things that happened these rocks were involved in, of the many. And one of them didn't make the top 8. It's mentioned for 2 sentences, that's all. And it's not even in the first article. In the second article, when I do it, it didn't get in. But I'm going to start with that one anyway. We were bringing the rocks down to Adelaide at the Rock Workshop, and there's videos of that where they actually came to life for the first time, because at that stage I had no contact with them. And everyone was telling me it's my job to read them, to get to know them, to find out what they want, and to guide them. Or for them to guide me, as it turned out. At that stage I had nothing. But when I got to the airport, I was in contact with a tribe from inland, I'm not going to say which one, and they were concerned because there was a lady there that had one of these types of rocks, which she kept. I never didn't want it. It was hers at the time. And her health was showing the worse for wear because of it. So when I got to the airport, They drove 800 k's to meet me at the airport for a 1 hour meeting, and then they were going to go back. And they came 2 elders plus this lady. I held the rock in my hand. I saw the markings. I could see it was Star Rock's collection, but I could also see it was a male rock. And she was a female. And I said to her, look, this is about the Seven Sisters, and it's a male rock, and you shouldn't behold it. Both the elders told them that they'd said the same thing to her, and they agreed what I said. We all agreed that what I'd read is what they saw in it too. We're all in agreement. Do not have this rock. Then she told me that someone was trying to steal the rock off her, and it was causing a lot of grief, and she was concerned about that, and she had to keep it in the house. And I told her, for God's sake, don't do that. I said, take it outside, bury it. Don't leave it in the house. It's not going to help you. Anyway, she left. And some of the people I know from another tribe there, from the Ramanjeri, gave me the rest of the story, because one of them went and saw her in hospital 2 days before she died. Everyone knew what happened. The rock killed her. Now, I'm not saying this is a good story. I want to explain to you that they've got power. And I want to give you both sides of the equation, because some of these rocks are used for good things, some are used for bad things. Many are just used in different ways at different times. And these rocks have actually they've been together for quite some time, and we're all on board with the same approach right now. That's a healing approach. We have a couple of sheriffs, vengeance rocks amongst them, but they're only one amongst many. And what they do if someone shouldn't be there, they will make them feel uncomfortable, so they don't want to be there. And by the way, I've seen that happen. People have sat in there and said, look, come on, out of that one, it's not going to work. And sometimes we put them in the other circle and they're fine. It's just that sometimes their development doesn't run with the two circles that are there, because they have different because one's star rocks and all the other types are sacred earth rocks. So one group do with stuff up there, as on top, and the other one's so below down there. So there's an example of what these rocks can do. Now let's talk about our rocks, because when I did have them in formation, before they were never put in formation anywhere but here at our property. Though I don't like that once, and 2 people came to see me who I knew quite well. Both were original elders, and they sat between the rocks, and they brought a third person with them. And that third person I didn't know, but they vouched for them. And so I said, that's okay, fine. If you vouch for them, okay, you can sit inside them. You sit inside that rock. Not the other one, because I didn't know him well enough to put him inside the other circle. And I can't remember why, but for some reason I went around the front for a while. And when I came back, I found him with a rock in his hand. Now, everyone knows no one but me can touch it. And not even my son touches it, not my wife. My wife, and you'll read a story about that, tried to touch it once and it nearly killed her. But I'm not telling you that one now. That's in the first article. Everybody knew that, and he did too. And the rock he had in his hand was the rock that my elder Kano selected specifically to say this was the rock that he bound with the most, and he passed on. And this guy looked at me, and I said, why are you doing this? He said, oh, he called me and said, oh man, haven't you read Lord of the Rings? He said, the ring calls there and it doesn't work out. Well, why didn't you work that out? And he said, well, what are you going to do to me? I said, nothing. I said, but I've got to tell you something. It's Kano's rock, and you've offended him. And I said, good luck with that. In fact, I think I wrote that in the article. Anyway, 3 months later, he came back and rang me, and we'd heard his relationship had broken up, he'd been evicted, he'd lost his job, and he had fallen on bad times, and that didn't surprise me. Didn't surprise me at all. But what disappointed me, but again didn't surprise me, is he was terminally ill with cancer. In that 3 months, just the whole world had fallen apart, and there was nothing they could do for him. When we saw him, he was a deathly grey, he'd lost about 25 kilos, he was just skin and bone, and he was barely walking when he came to see us. And ladies and gentlemen, what happened was, and I'll have to go and get that rock now because I didn't have it with me. Sorry about that. We have a healing rock. It's a female rock, so it's held in the left hand. And if you have a look at it, you'll see on the back where the palm is sat in there when it's been used. Now, I knew this was a healing rock. I'd used it twice before, once on my wife when she touched the rock, and I knew that it worked, but I thought, I don't know what's going to happen. So what happened was, he came there. Now, I had some people with us at the time that aren't with us anymore, and one of them was a psychic, and she said, I can do this. I can heal him. I said, oh, God. I said, all right, go for it first. So she spent a minute or so trying to do different stuff, and then she stopped and looked up at me, just shook her head, just said to me, nothing can be done. So what I did was I took this rock, I did with the others, I rubbed on the back there where the cancer was basically settled but spreading through the whole of his body. And within about 20 seconds, there was a gentleman sleeping, or resting, a partner of this guy, this one lady, about 2 bedrooms down the hallway, the veranda where we were, because we're out in the veranda. And he screamed, "Get the F off me." And he yelled out a second time, and we wondered what the hell's coming on. And he came out and said, this huge black mass of something tried to get inside my body. The psychic said when I started to rub her back, here's this guy's back, she could see it welling out and it just shot out. Now, it could have been that the guy that was resting in there when he said something tried to invade my body was just having a nightmare and watched a movie and was just replaying it. Or it could have been that that rock had taken all that negative energy out of his body. It could have been the psychic was just making it up. But I can tell you something else. We heard from this guy about 3 months later. He was in Thailand having a holiday, completely cured. And I can tell you one thing. What he said was this: that white rock cured me. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the reason I'm telling you those two stories, and there are many others, and I'm suggesting that you come to our workshop and listen to them, not our workshop, our conference, or whatever it's called. I wanted to show you both sides of these rocks, what they're capable of, and the reason we've written these articles to give you an idea of what sits inside these rocks that doesn't sit in any scientific textbook. It just doesn't. I'm aware of that, but the problem is this is what's happened. Now, I've written 8. I had 4 more on the list, and one of them was that lady who I spoke about who died. That's just going to be 2 sentences. And I had others I didn't put in there. Now, what does that tell me? If you read that and you're prepared to believe us, it tells me that what those rocks say they're capable of doing if they wish to, they actually can. And that's why we're doing it this way. So what I'm asking you to do, ladies and gentlemen, if you can, whoever were the people who shared this out last time, we went from 2,000 to well over 50,000. People are aware of the rocks. Okay, let's teach them more. Let's teach them about the mystical side. And at the end of that presentation, with a bit of luck, we'll have a little break and then we'll get a practice before and see if we can put the rocks out on some pavers, which are made from natural material. Therefore, the rocks are comfortable on that. They don't like carpet, so we can't put them in. They will not work under carpet. They have to be with the earth. We'll set them up there and we'll see what happens. Now, I know if you can get to South Australia, which about 2 states in Australia can and no one else in the world can, you could get to that site and you can actually be in Congress with these rocks. And they want to do that. And they'll give you what you need. And if they decide you need nothing, you come and see us. We don't even argue the point. We charge $10. We want to make it as cheap as we can to sit inside that circle, each of them. We give it straight back, no questions asked. But if you're going there with the right intention, I can guarantee you now, you won't be asking for anything. And in return, I've got to make the point, there's all original people working there, and that money goes to their wages. It doesn't go to me. I'm not working there. Our stuff is there, but I'm not working there. I do not get a wage. That's not how this works. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the near foreseeable future, this will happen. But in the meantime, our next conference, we're calling this skirting around the edges, and that's what it's trying to do. We're picking up important pieces of information that didn't fit schematically into other presentations, but need to be involved. So obviously one of these things is going to be the rocks. We haven't done them before. And we're going to be talking about what they're going to be doing around the edges in South Australia in relation to the change that's coming. And then we've got a gentleman called Diego, and man, a fair income. He's from Italy, and he's got photographs of anomalies, and they're incredible photographs. And I don't mean just UFOs, of beings, of objects that are so graphic and so amazing and so clear. And he's got a fascinating story about just all the different type of things and beings and objects that don't fit in. Again, running around the edges. Then we've got Geraldine, a lawyer, fully qualified. And we're going to look at a structure. And we're going to need a legal structure in the future when the change has taken place. So again, it's the same theme. But then, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest that came quite recently, Trudy Roberts. And she's going to be talking about the focal dreaming story that is the base upon all of our work. The Seven Sisters from the Pleiades. And for me, this talk is as important as hearing about the rocks and the rocks being in ceremony. Because really, that's where we base all of our work in Australia on, that one seminal dreaming story that is known in every tribal estate in Australia, whereas no other one is. The reason being because it's focal to where original people came from and where we're going back to. Up until now, I've spoken about it for 3 minutes because I'm a male and it's all I can do. Trudy has the right, as the custodian of the Seven Sisters story, and also has the permission of the elders around her who gave her that permission to give information that's never been given publicly before and give depth to that story. And I think that's incredibly important. She will also, because we're not going to do it this time, she's picking up that slack. She will be talking about this imminent change and what it means to them and to us. We decided this time we'll stand back and give us some of our time because we always do talk about the change, and this time we're not going to do it. We'll let her do it. And this is a better way of doing it because this time you're listening to a woman talking about the dreaming story that has come back. It began when they came. They left us. They started this place in a different story we'll talk about with one of the rocks. It talks about how they threw a spear here and that started life. That's one of those rocks here you'll hear about. And the first rock, the very first rock, is about the time that they came. These rocks, these star rocks, are about the Pleiades. What Trudy's going to talk about is the nuts and bolts of this, and it really runs in very well. And then we finish it again with a series of 10 questions for our resident guide from the other side, Mesrith. And for those of you who've heard what's come out before, I'm not even going to try and convince you it's legitimate. I don't have to. Just listen to what is said and what Leah writes down and reports back, and you'll know that it's not us because we're just not that smart. I got to tell you, last time, some of the answers I got, I really didn't know what to say, and I sort of look forward to this with as much fascination as there is dread, because I know some of these questions are going to be so cryptic and so far from left field, I just won't have a response. I think once or twice I tried to make one up when I really shouldn't have because I didn't know what to say, and I've decided this time, if I asked 10 questions instead of 8, if there's a couple I can't answer, this time I'm just going to say, too hard for me, I'll come back later. I think I made a fool of myself by trying to add something to 2 of them when I really didn't get it because it was just too hard. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's all based around that same story of what happened at Uluru on the 21st of December. But if you could share this out, because these rocks want to speak now. They want to be known. And obviously with such a large response the first time, let's tell the other side of the story this time. Yeah, I'll get back again, and if those people who don't want to hear the mystical side and don't believe it, don't watch this one. Don't worry about it. Come back for the next one. But if you're even slightly open to it, please, you really should listen, because the stuff we're telling is exactly what happened. We're not making it up. This is what the rocks have done. And what they can do, if you believe that's true, then it's easy for the rest. And if you put them all together, over 200 of them, I'm talking about what one did on one occasion, multiply that by 200 and see what you get. It could change the planet. So ladies and gentlemen, come and join us next time. I'm sorry I spent so long. I was going to try and be quiet, but shorter. That didn't happen. Anyway, until next time, come and join us on Sunday. I guarantee you'll find it interesting.